Hi, I'm Ian Clinton, founder of Charity Excellence. Risk management in charities is critical, but it's almost always about managing the risks that we're exposed to. There is another way to look at it, and that's about actively taking risks because it's worth it for the payback. And that's what I'm going to talk about here. Plato's cave and black swans and how you approach it. As I say to my board, don't worry, it'll be fine. This is a different way to do it. So let's just look at risk in the fund. It's not a standalone activity. So at the bottom, you've got your risk plan, your budget plan, and your annual plan. They're all interconnected. So when you say, oh yeah, we'll have a stretch target for fundraising, it'll be fine. What you're doing is you're pumping risk into your risk plan. And you're making things riskier and riskier and riskier. And if you're not making sure that these things are traded off, you can pump the risk up within your charity and have no idea you're doing it. And feedback within the data set shows unrealistic target setting for things like income is very common. So we're not that good at doing this. Managing risk here is operational risk. It's about tolerance. How do we manage these risks down to a level that is more acceptable? There's a different way. If you look at strategy, that's about the big picture and the long term. So you may focus in on the near term to keep it safe here and now, but you may be stacking up risk for the future you're not thinking about. If you focus about managing the long-term risk, you may be pumping up the risk in the near term. So that's what the arrow is, the big cycle. You can't win. It's a string in a piece of drain. It's like a string in a drain pipe. Risk appetite is about deliberately taking strategic risks to achieve your objectives. So if you are working in terminal illness or cancer, would you gamble the whole charity on delivering a cure for cancer if there was only 5% chance you would do it and a 95% chance you would go bankrupt? That's strategic risk appetite. How up for it are you? So this is what it looks like. Other factors. We almost always focus on downside risk. If you add up all the bad things that are going to happen to you, you actually get quite a bleak picture. Because upside risk is the risk of something good happening. So, for example, we put in the risks of those trust fundraising bids not coming in. What about the funding bid or the legacy that we didn't even expect that suddenly arrives? It's happened to me. I came into work one morning, £375,000 on the legacy. Good morning. Yeah, really good. And here, in Charity Excellence, Red Brain approached me. So did the GSR Foundation. I had no idea. Completely out of the blue. Fabulous. Upside risk. Opportunity cost is an accounting term. It's the cost of what you don't do. So that idea you didn't launch, that risk you didn't take, you will never know what the payback for that could have been. You may have lost out massively. So you decide you're not going to worry about AI. And actually, had you done it and had you brought it, you could have revolutionized that. You could have been asked, you won't know because you never tried it. Not saying you should, but you won't know because you haven't tried it. And risk and performance are linked. If you do it properly, bigger the risk, bigger the payback. So if you always remain in the here and now and the near term, and you're timid, you will be safer, probably, but you will not make any great changes. So I built Charity Excellence, absolute wing and a prayer, and it came in. It might not have. I might have blown all my family savings for nothing. I gambled. I'm a risk taker. Gamble paid off. So these are the things we need to think about. What is risk appetite? Risk tolerance, which is what we all do, is the amount of risk we're prepared to tolerate. That's what the conversation about risk register is all about. How much can we, is this mitigated enough? Can we remain within the tolerance? Risk appetite is the level of risk you're prepared to accept to achieve your objectives. How much risk are you willing to live with? And how much you need to manage? So it's strategic risk. It's not the risk inherent in running the charity. There's a risk the funding won't come in. There's a risk there will be a safeguarding problem. There's a risk we will be sued, whatever. It's not that, not that at all. It arises because of the decisions you make concerning the charity's objectives. You are choosing to take the risk. And unlike operational risk, it is much less controllable because the stuff is out there. We're going to invest very significantly in a high net worth program. It will take 2 years. It will take a high level of investment. It will take significant diversion of staffing and management time. It might not work. You don't control the high net worths. You can take the risk, but you don't control them. In terms of the safeguarding issues inside your charity, you do control those. So you can actually directly manage them, but you can't manage the risk appetite. And Plato's cave, about the prisoner locked up in the cave, whose view of the world was all he could see. I think it was about 200 BC. And his view of the world was skewed. It was completely wrong. If you were outside looking in, you could see how wrong he was. But he didn't know because he only knew that little bit. And this is kind of Plato's cave. What you know. A known known, we know this, we know it's a risk, and we can plan to manage it. That's risk of a safeguarding problem. A known unknown is, well, we know this is a risk, but there's no way we can quantify the probability of the impact. So it's just kind of there. So we know it's a risk, but we just don't know how big it represents. So this stuff we know. Unknowns. An unknown known is something we understand. We understand the process and the system, what it is. We don't know it's a risk. So in a sense, COVID was arguably that. We knew there was a risk of influenza epidemic. The epidemiologists have been saying it for years. And just kind of, we just assumed it. And so it was an unknown known. We didn't realize it was going to come. Unknown unknowns. We don't know it's a risk. And we don't really know anything about it. And you're going, well, that's absolutely fantastic, Ian. How am I supposed to deal with stuff like that? Good point. So these are the questions you ask yourself. So if we know it's a risk and we haven't quantified it, are we conscious of what we're not exploring? Do we understand what we're doing here? If it's an unknown known, are we aware of our own assumptions? We assume certain things will just happen. Are we aware that's actually an assumption and not reality? And that will help us to uncover it. And then the unknown unknowns are really around bias, unconscious decisions. We just do this stuff. We don't even know we're doing it. Can we uncover that and understand it? And by doing that, we would get a better understanding. And this puts risk management in a completely different context. Because you're going, wait a minute, I knew everything in my risk register, and suddenly what you're saying to me is I don't. And the answer is, yeah, that's right, you don't. Black swan events. It's all business speak. It's about the things that just come out of left field and punch you in the head. And you've no idea it was ever coming. COVID. Nobody saw that coming. The war in Ukraine. If you look back with hindsight, yeah, we were rolling the dice on influenza, and at some point it was going to come up a 1, and it was COVID, and it was March 2020. But we didn't see it coming. So where are the black swan events that are coming? Well, I can't tell you, because there would be black swan events if I knew the answer, would they? However, you can speculate. US military conflict in China. Taiwan, pro-independence, declares independence. China's not happy about that. It's an election year. Mr. Trump does a certain something. Biden feels he's got the judge. And suddenly you've got an American carrier fleet launching on the Chinese. Economic crash in China. We know the housing market out there is pants. We know they're really struggling in certain areas. Suddenly an economic crash materializes out of nowhere. Structurally, it could happen. And then the whole world catches a cold. Guess what? Cost of living crisis too. Global digital virus. We're all focusing on AI. AI is going to be absolutely fabulous. And somebody unleashes something and it trashes everything. And it kills. Gone. Collapse of an abandoned Ukraine. An emboldened Vladimir Putin steamrolls across the entire country. That's a huge country. And when he gets to the borders of Moldova and other places like that, he doesn't stop. And then NATO triggers Article 6, and you've got a European war. Are these going to happen? Almost certainly not. But structurally, they could. So these are the kind of black swan events that are out there. So being more positively, we're looking at our risk appetite. We're deciding what big strategic risks could we take? How could we make a step change in our organization? Really do something bold. First question, how effective are your risk management and control systems? Because if you're going to do this stuff, you want the risk you're already managing to be nice and taut and extremely well run. What are your strategic objectives? What is it you're going to step change? What is it you're going to do? If we suddenly take the charity to America, major of it, we're going to do this. Okay, that's an objective. And what risks are you prepared to take to achieve that? How much are you going to put on the table? Okay, yeah, that's going to cost £1 million. We're going to need a massive fundraising campaign. We're going to need to build up a fundraising team. We're going to have to pay for all of that. We're going to have to burgle all the reserves that we've got. We've got to pull that £1 million together, and then we're going to go for it with that £1 million. But we don't know if it'll be successful. Can we manage the risk adequately to be comfortable? Are you really clear on the nature and the scale of the risks that you're taking? This is where the biased and the wishful thinking and things come in. It'll be okay. Yeah. And how much risk are you prepared to take at any one time? So if you ask yourself all of these questions, you will have a better understanding of the extent to which you can take a game-changing risk. And everything we do is a risk. So this is just a bigger version of what you're doing already. But taking that step change, making things differently. And that is a quick stampede through risk appetite. I don't think you're both going to want to do it, but I thought it might be useful to give you a different perspective on what risk looks like. And in terms of, has anyone ever done this stuff? I did. I built the charity exits framework. I paid everything out of our savings. I worked unpaid for years. I did it because I wanted to change the entire charity sector for the better. And I bet the farm on it and went. That is strategic risk-taking. If I fundamentally change the charity sector, it will all have been worth it. If it fails, everything I've done and all that time is gone. Welcome to risk appetite. Thank you.